move to you, Mr. Roberts. Please introduce yourself, and the floor is yours for 3.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jeff Roberts. I'm Executive Director of the Colorado Freedom of Information Coalition, a nonpartisan group that promotes government transparency and helps journalists and the public understand and use Colorado's open government laws. The views of our legislative committee may not represent the views of all of our member organizations. CFOIC is taking an amend position on Senate Bill 77 because we appreciate the Senate sponsor's stakeholding and her willingness to include some provisions that could be helpful to requesters if the bill passes. But as with last year's bill, CFOIC is concerned about the extended response times in Senate Bill 77 because it will create more obstacles to obtaining public records. In my job, I hear every day from journalists and members of the public who encounter delays, incorrectly applied exemptions, and exorbitant fees. The maximum research and retrieval rate in Cora, the fee rate in Cora, jumped 23% last July 1st to $41.37 an hour. And we've counted nearly 1,500 cities, towns, counties, state agencies, special districts, school districts, and public universities that have raised their rates since then. Fees already are a significant barrier to obtaining public records, which is why governments don't need a reason to take longer to process Cora requests. I often hear from journalists and the members of the public whose Cora requests take much longer than the statutory deadlines. It's common for records custodians to say that extenuating circumstances exist, which under this bill would give them 15 working days, 3 weeks to provide records. A Denver Post reporter wrote on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, quote, "In my experience, governments almost never actually meet the existing Cora deadlines." Recently, I spoke with someone who's been waiting since October for a response from a public university in Colorado. People have little or no power when their request for records is delayed. They don't file lawsuits over delayed responses because of the time it takes to resolve a lawsuit. And in January, the Court of Appeals decided that requesters cannot sue over delayed responses if they eventually get the records, even if it took months. The ruling applies to the judicial branch's record rules, not Cora, but the Court of Appeals would likely look at a similar Cora lawsuit the same way. The language in Pair 2, which is the judicial branch's records rules, about the right to sue over a denial of records is identical to the language in Cora. Coloradans need access to public records, not more obstacles. Thank you.
So I have a question for Mr. Roberts. Who's followed through the way they're supposed to, in my opinion. So Sunshine Laws, Cora specific, are you seeing a deterioration of this? Are you seeing this not getting where it's supposed to be in a sunshine mentality? And if so, unpack that. If not, unpack that.
Mr. Roberts.
Thank you. Well, in the past few years, we've seen more efforts to restrict access to public records, I would say, than expand access to public records. Obviously, our organization would be for the latter, expanding access to public records, making it easier for people to get information about their government. So generally, there have been some positive things that have happened, especially around police accountability and transparency, more access to police internal affairs records, more access to police body camera footage. But an example from last session was a bill that made it much more difficult to get disciplinary records of educators in Colorado at public schools. If those records are used in their evaluations, the Colorado Court of Appeals recently ruled you can't get them, but you can get similar types of records, disciplinary records, for other types of public officials. So yes, we're concerned about maybe what you could call some backsliding.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just as a follow-up on that, why do you think that we're seeing this closing in as opposed to opening up? And you've obviously have a passion about this space and are active in it. Why do you see, or what do you think is causing this sort of trend in the opposite direction?
Rep. Black, are you asking Mr. Roberts that question? Okay, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that we have been trying for several years to get the formula for calculating Cora fees reevaluated. That was put into statute in 2014, and we believe that there's a problem in the law because the rate was tied to inflation, and that's why it went up so much last year. And the number of hours that rate is multiplied by is not restricted at all. And we've been unable to get any legislators interested in doing that, perhaps because they don't like being Cora'd, as you said. I don't know if that's really the reason, though. So I don't know the answer to that, but there just hasn't been as much of an effort to expand access.
All right. Thank you all so much.